prayer, sent our offering tonight. 1 Kings chapter 19. I want to look at this verse, verse number 10. God just gave me this very unique word, especially for New Year's Eve. I just want to share this with you to encourage your hearts. And we're going to begin with verse number 9. Here begins the reading, 1 Kings chapter 19. Thank you. 1 Kings chapter 19, verse number 9. 1 Kings 19 and 9. 19 and 9. We're going to begin with the 9th verse. And verse number 9 of 1 Kings chapter 19 says, "And there he went into a cave. And there he went into a cave and spent the night in that place. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, What are you doing here, Elijah? And so he said, I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, tore down your altars, killed your prophets with the sword, and I alone am left. And I alone am left. And they seek to take my life. Then he said, Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore into the mountains and broke the rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. I want you to notice this. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still, small voice. And so it was when Elijah heard it. Everybody say he heard it. That he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. And suddenly a voice came to him and said, What are you doing here? And he says again in verse 14, I am alone and left, and they seek to take my life. I want to drop down to verse 18. He says, God says to him, Yet I have reserved 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. I want to focus in on what God asked Elijah. He says, What are you doing here? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Yes, New Year's Eve. What are you doing here? And Elijah responds to him all the stuff that just happened. But then he says, I alone am left. And God just gave me a simple word. And I want you to just look at somebody and tell them very simply, just look at them and say, You are not alone.
You are not alone.
I want you to look at somebody else and tell them, You are not alone.
You are not alone.
It is very easy in our society that we're living in, a very cosmetic culture that we're living in which we put on facades and we like to make sure we have our best stuff on when we take pictures and want to embellish them so that we're able to look our best on the outside, but yet we can be crumbling on the inside. And God says to the prophet Elijah, What are you doing here? He finds himself at a low place and a low point. Ironically, he finds himself at a low place and at a low point just after achieving a powerful victory. And after hitting this victorious peak, he then finds himself in the pit and valley of despair. Have you ever noticed in your life how you can have something go really great and then it turn around and be really bad in just a moment?
Yes.
You just celebrate something and you're excited, and then all of a sudden, before you're even able to tell somebody the good news, you get a text of something crazy that just happened. Elijah is wrestling with the tension of having just secured a victory, but he himself feeling as if everything he's done has amounted to nothing. And for some of us in this room tonight, myself included, if you can really be honest, this year had a whole lot of twists and turns that you didn't see coming. I wish somebody would talk to me tonight. This year had a whole lot of twists and turns that if you really knew last year this time, you almost would say, I don't really want to go through with the year because of some of the things that you might have lost and gone through.
Right.
But in spite of all that he endured, God looks at him and asks him a question and says, what are you doing here? He's looking at him not from the lens of a physical destination, but from a lens of a spiritual destination. It was not so much where he was sitting, but it was the posture of his heart. And God looks at him and says to him, I want you to understand something. While you just secured something that might make you feel important, you are not alone. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you a story and tell you that everything is going to go well in 2019, 2021, 22, 25, 2030, all those other years. But I will say this to you. The same God that kept you the year last year, the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that is also the same God that will keep you into 2019. And even when things happen that we don't have an answer for, we have this assurance that he will never leave us nor forsake us. Elijah is wrestling with something. I want to give you 3 keys that will really enable you to have an effective 2019. Can we do that?
Amen.
3 keys that will enable you to have a real effective 2019. Notice 3 particular things that happen in this passage of scripture. The first thing, as soon as Elijah begins to engage in dialogue with God, first thing we have to always understand, whenever God asks you a question, he's not asking you a question because he doesn't have an answer to it. He's asking you a question so that there might be a revelation that comes in your life that will change how you see.
Right.
What have you endured this year that changed how you saw life? What have you endured this year that changed your own definition of success? Because let me tell you something about tragedy and conflict and chaos. You can have all kinds of plans you want, but there will be some moments in your journey in which something will hit you so hard, in which everything that you could have planned for, plan A, B, C, all the way down to Z, won't help you. And you will find yourself in a period and a point of frustration, trying to figure out, how do I handle this space I'm in? God sent me to preach to somebody tonight. You've just come out of something. You're about to step into something that you're not sure about. You're in between places. And there's some challenges that come when we live in between times. We've seen what happened behind us, but we're still not sure what's coming ahead of us. And while we're in that moment, God comes to Elijah and says to him, what are you doing here? That means that there's something happening here.
Right.
That's not happening somewhere else. You've been wounded. You've been frustrated. But I don't want you to so focus on all the stuff that went wrong that you don't see that I've been here all along. And so many times we're so wired toward saying everything that's going bad in our lives, everything that's going bad in our families, everything that's going bad on our job. You sometimes can't even ask somebody how's everything going, because they're going to give you a bad report about everything. Even the food they had that they could have been from a good restaurant, but the waiter got on their nerve. And then the water, you don't even have to make it, but the water's nasty because you're upset. But in spite of all that you endure, there is an assurance to know that no matter how it looks and how it may feel, you're not alone.
Right. Amen.
And I came tonight to serve notice to you that as we get ready to embark upon a brand new year, challenges will come. Tests will come. Circumstances will come. But you have this assurance. The same God who was here yesterday is here today and will be here tomorrow. So how do we now work through this? The first thing, we're declaring that this 2019 is the year of focus. Everybody said the year of focus. Focus then requires us to really understand. If we're going to understand focus, it requires us first of all to understand that we have to be faithful. We have to be faithful. We have to be faithful. Why? Because faithfulness brings fruitfulness. Faithfulness brings fruitfulness. You never get into anything with someone that's unfaithful. I know there's a woman that can attest to that tonight.
Come on.
Faithfulness brings fruitfulness. But if we're really going to focus, F-O-C-U-S, if we're really going to focus, not only are we going to be faithful, but we also have to be obedient. Everybody say obedient.
Obedient.
I have to be obedient, watch this, to the things of God when it's inconvenient to me. God looks at Elijah and says to him, what are you doing? Where are you? You think you're by yourself, but I've got a whole other group of people who have not bowed down just like you. But the moment you're in, you're allowing the feeling you feel now to be at odds with what I've placed inside you. So we've got to be faithful. We've got to be obedient. But then we've got to be consistent. And that's really tough, especially when we spend time and look at people writing all kinds of resolutions that don't go past January 2nd.
That's right.
Got to be faithful, obedient, but then consistent. Why? Because consistency is the key to sustainability. Nothing in your life will be sustained unless you're consistent. No matter what kind of desire it is that you may have, nothing in your life will be sustained unless you're consistent. So I have to be faithful, obedient, consistent. And then I recognize in that U-turn, I've got to really make sure that I'm united. And I came to tell somebody tonight, you need to just do a glance over at your phone, and some of them Happy New Year texts you're going to get in a few minutes, you don't need to answer them. Because everybody ain't texting you with the right intention.
That's right.
Come on.
And so you've got to be able to discern, is this someone that is united in my purpose, united in my assignment? If not, so long, bye.
Woo! Yes. Hallelujah.
Focus, faithful, obedient, consistent, united. And then the S deals with sensitivity. Sensitivity. I think it was Greg Friday, Saturday that shared something that was very key. You've got to really be careful in this season we're in. Who has your ear?
Yeah. Say that again.
I don't know who that's for tonight, but I hear it by power of the Holy Ghost. You've got to be careful who has your ear, because whoever has your ear is then the one able to speak things into you. And you'll be sitting there trying to fight with yourself from the very thing you really believe you ought to do, and some person could call you or text you, and it throws everything else you just were trying to get accomplished. And notice now, we've got to be sensitive. Everybody say sensitivity.
Sensitivity.
Sensitivity to discern. That's the first key. To discern what's coming. I have to be able to discern what's coming. So if I'm going to be focused, faithful, obedient, consistent, united, and sensitive, it requires three keys. The first key is discernment. Discernment. I have to discern who's talking to me, what their motive and intent is. You ever had somebody text you and you ain't heard from them in 3 years? You already know it's about something. They're either trying to sell you something or trying to find who you know for something and all of that. You know, I had someone text me the other day, and I was just so frustrated by it. I just looked at the phone and couldn't believe it. And didn't even say, hello, I want you to come to this. Didn't even say, how you doing? How's your mother? How's your wife? Nope. Just, I want, you know, you've got to be very careful who places demands on you. So I have to be discerning. Everybody say discernment.
Discern.
I have to be able to discern What am I supposed to do right now?
Yeah.
Entering a brand new year. Some stuff you need to cut loose. Some people you need to cut loose. Some things around you need to cut loose. So you've got to be able to discern if this is not for me in this season, it's got to go. Because the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. So I've got to have the key of discernment. Then secondly, I've got to have the key of discipline. I have to have the key of discipline. Because discipline is the bridge between thought and accomplishment. Discipline is the bridge between thought and accomplishment. And a lot of times the reason why some things don't get accomplished in the time frame we desire is because we don't have discipline. All right, you don't want to admit it? I'll admit it. I went to Planet Fitness recently because they always charge my card every month, and I ain't been there in God knows how long. So I went over there, and the lady looked at me, and she said, you haven't been here in 300. I said, you don't have to say it. I know. I'm aware. And I had to cut it off. I cut it off because I was starting to pay it because I knew I wasn't going. I didn't have the discipline for it. There you go. So you've got to be able to understand discipline. Discipline concerning what the desire, the goal, the destination that's in your heart. What does it require you to become? Whenever I'm praying about a certain decision I need to make, I don't know why I'm saying this, but God is leading me this way. The first thing I ask myself, Shante, is who must I become to handle this? Because the me right now is not the me that it will require to maintain what it is I desire for. So not only that, first key is discernment. Second key is discipline. The third key, and this one is the master key, discretion. Discretion. If I'm really going to focus, I've got to be able to discern. I've got to be able to be disciplined, and I've got to be able to exercise discretion. Some things don't need to be said.
Amen. Say it again.
And in a society, in a world in which we want everything to be said because everything's a soundbite, if you're going to navigate this year wisely,
Amen.
know how to exercise restraint on what you do say. To discern and understand motive and intent. Possibility. So when we really understand focus, I have to recognize discernment. I have to also, after understanding discernment, I have to pursue discipline. And then thirdly, I've got to operate and walk in discretion. And notice the bridge of the text as I close. Notice the bridge of the text. The bridge of the text then comes to us when Elijah comes to the realization that all this time he had been serving God and felt as if nobody appreciated who he was. Nobody appreciated what he was doing. And there are many seasons in our lives in which you will give as everything you can for someone and they still don't appreciate what you do for them.
Right.
And Elijah just scoring a victory, but he scored the victory alone. What good is it to do something wonderful and have nobody to tell about it? And God speaks to him. But look, John, he speaks to him in a very unique way. I'm closing with this. Sean, he does not speak to him in the noise. Which means that if some things around us are too noisy, we might miss what he's doing. They looked and behold, he was not in the earthquake. Looked in the fire and he was not in the fire. Looked in the wind and he was not in the wind. What do you do when God moves at a way and a place you're not used to? He comes to him not in the earthquake, not in the wind, but in a still, small voice. And he says to him, again, what are you doing here? And then he drops an understanding and says to him, You think you're by yourself. But I've got other people who've been in camouflage that also have not bowed down. I've got other people who've been undercover doing what needs to be done, and nobody notices who they are. I believe this year 2019 is going to be a year of discovery for you. And I declare to you as a prophet of God, I believe it's going to be a year of discovery for you, in which there will be others that will sit there and say, I didn't even know that person was there. But in that moment, there will be an opening that provides possibility. I want you to lay your hand on someone again. Just lay your hand on them and tell them again, you're not alone. Tell them again, you're not alone. Tell them again, you're not alone. I want you to take a moment, every head bowed, every eye closed. Every head bowed, every eye closed. No matter how... God bless you, my friend. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I pray that a word was spoken that transforms and changes your life. Please stay connected with us, www.globalfirenow.com. I'd love to hear from you. Expect great.